All right, guys. So we're going to do a quick review of social studies, what we talked about so far, and then we're going to kind of go full speed ahead. I'm pretty excited. Okay. So we know that for a while, the kings and queens of Europe were saying when they were asked to spend money on ocean exploration, their answer was always the same. You want money to go out into the ocean? No way. But we know that those no's became yeses, and that was the start of the age of exploration. And we're talking like the end of the 1400s, 1500s, and into the 1600s. And when the age of exploration first started, the goal was pretty simple: to find a way by water to get to the Indies because the way by land had been blocked. So remember that they didn't know much about what the earth looked like, and so they had no idea the Americas were there. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to my face because I think it'll be easier. Okay, so we know that Portugal, come on, click, there we go. Portugal, Prince Henry of Portugal, was the first to plan to send people out into the ocean to find a way by water to get to the Indies. His goal was to do so by going around Africa, a place that really no one knew very much about at all. And we know that at first they sent Bartholomew Diaz in 1487. If you follow the red line, he made it to the southern tip of Africa, but then turned around and went back. Portugal learned from his mistakes, and 10 years later, they sent Vasco da Gama, and he absolutely accomplished his goal and found a way to get to the riches of the Indies. Now, in the middle, in between those two journeys, that's when Columbus wants to jump into the mix here, and he gets money from the Queen of Spain to try to find a way to get to the Indies by water. He thinks that by sailing west, it would be much faster and a better route than going around Africa. But if you remember, they didn't know the Americas were there. So when he sails west to try to get to the Indies, he really lands in the Americas. Even after 4 journeys, he still thought he had made it to the Indies every time and died still thinking he made it to the Indies. We talked today that although Columbus did not discover America, he wasn't the first one there, and he didn't even know he was there, he did change history forever because he went back to Europe and said, hey guys, if you sail west, you'll make it to the Indies. Other explorers did the same thing. Explorers like Thinker Dude. The difference between Columbus and Thinker Dude is that Thinker Dude was a thinker. And after his first journey, he started to realize things didn't seem to be connecting. And after his second journey, he realized that this land that he and Columbus had landed in was absolutely not the Indies. Thinker Dude's real name, Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci realized that there was a whole new land out there that they had landed in, a whole new world, and he was the first to figure that out. He was also the first to get the Americas put onto a map. You can see the Americas here. And because it was Amerigo Vespucci that figured it out, it was named America after Amerigo Vespucci. Now that they figured out the Americas were there, the kings and queens were all forgetting about the riches of the Indies and were all about claiming as much of that land as possible for themselves. And we talked about the fact that in the 1500s, that was when Europe really tried to take control of the Americas: Spain, France, Portugal, and England. Italy didn't really do much in claiming land in the Americas. And just because this is a review, if you remember, Portugal claimed a chunk of land in South America, land that is today Brazil. Spain ended up claiming land and more land like La Florida, and more land, what is now Mexico, more land in South America and spread throughout South America, and even more land into what is now southwestern United States. France did claim some land of their own. Now, at this point, you'll notice England is not on here. That is because England was kind of late to join the claiming of the Americas party. And if I'm going to include England in this map, then I need to change the title of this map. I cannot say in the 1500s because they did not officially claim land until the 1600s. So if I cross that in the 1500s off, and we talk about the land that England will claim, they claim this little chunk of land right there in what is the eastern part of what is today the United States. And England actually took a really long time to claim that land. Spain claimed all of that land in red in less than 40 years. England ended up claiming their land chunk by chunk by chunk. In fact, 13 small chunks in a time period of 126 years. And so England will end up being our main character of our story from here on out. We're not going to really spend too much time talking about Spain, France, and Portugal anymore. Some, a little bit, but England will be our main character because it will be the land that England claims that will lead directly to the birth of the United States of America, which is our goal. So one thing you need to realize is it surprises me a bit that England took so long to start claiming land because back during the 1500s, England and Spain were rivals, constant rivals. They constantly were at war for one another, constantly wanting to fight one another to become the most powerful. And so Spain clearly, if you think about all the red on that map, was taking the lead in their race to claim the land in the Americas. But now England says it's our turn. To kind of give you an idea how England claiming land leads to our target, the birth of our country, we're actually going to work backwards. We know that eventually the United States of America is born. It is born in 1783, 237 years ago, at the end of the Revolutionary War. If you remember, the 1500s, the age of exploration, that was when Spain and France and Portugal claimed land in the Americas. It's not going to be until the 1600s into the 1700s that England will finally claim some land in the Americas. And just as a reminder, that yellow part on that old map, that in red is the 13 chunks of land, the 13 pieces of land that England will claim over a 126-year period. Those 13 chunks of land are called the 13 colonies. We know that the colonists living in those 13 colonies will eventually be the ones that declare war on England, the Revolutionary War, in which the United States of America is born. Now, England will not officially claim land in the Americas until the 1600s. However, they did try a little before that. In 1587, England had their first attempt to claim land in the Americas. And England's first attempt to start a colony ended in a mystery that to this day has still never been solved. And it is the story that I'm going to tell you is referred to as the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Now, before I get started, I am going to start the story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke in a totally different video, just so I can cut them in half. But if you take a look at the picture here, you can see some of the different characters that will be in our story of England's first attempt to claim land. By the words first attempt, you can only imagine that it did not end well. So the next video you watch will be the story of the Lost Colony of Roanoke.